Commercial activities have resumed in the cities of Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun after the government announced the gradual easing of restrictions to curb the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. These activities exclude the airports as the nation's interstate and international borders remain closed. But the lockdown of the aviation sector comes with its attendant issues, job losses, not only at home but on the global scene. This is where we turn our attention on the program. Thank you so much for joining us on Aviation this week on Channels Television. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi.
Global air transportation survival is precariously hanging in the balance, no thanks to the devastating effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Airlines across the world are in dire straits with challenges ranging from liquidity crisis to job insecurity, with over 25 million people directly and indirectly dependent on aviation, including others in tourism and the hospitality sectors. The International Air Transport Association says that the industry is in the throes of an unprecedented crisis. Its Director General and Chief Executive Officer, Alexandra Dujunaik, says that airlines are facing the most critical period in the history of commercial aviation.
Measures that have been thought of by some countries for us are impossible to implement because it completely destroys, the way we operate. Neutralizing too many seats, would be, to maintain social distancing, would be absolutely impossible for many airlines. You wouldn't be able to operate an airport, or you would have to increase prices at least by 50 to 100%.
With global aviation witnessing distortions occasioned by the continuous spread of COVID-19, manifesting in travel bans, flight restrictions, closed airspace and airports to curb the spread of the disease, airlines are now reacting to the negative economic impact. In the United Kingdom, British Airways says it is set to cut up to 12,000 jobs as it deals with the collapse of the business because of the pandemic. The airline's parent company, IAG, said it needs to impose a restructuring and redundancy program until demand for the air travel returns to 2019 levels. Still in the UK, Ryanair plans to cut 3,000 jobs and talks to Boeing about delaying plane deliveries as it does not expect European air traffic to recover fully from the coronavirus crisis until 2022.
It breaks my heart we're going to have to let go 15% of our pilots and cabin crew. We're going to have pay cuts for everybody else. I've taken a pay cut myself of 50% out to the end of March 2021. I think we have to lead on this issue. And we're also looking at our aircraft orders now and seeing whether we delay or cancel some of those orders so that we right-size the airline for the next year or two, which are going to be grim.
The airline has pushed back the start of a return to normal rescheduling to July from June and said that it will only fly 50% of planned capacity in the 3 months to the end of September, usually its busiest season.
But numbers, we expect to be back flying by July, and I think all the people who've been locked up for the last 3 months will, certainly before the schools go back, families with children will want to go to Spain and Portugal, go to the beach for a couple of weeks. So we do think that bounce back in July, August, September will be strong. But it will be strong because the airlines are going to massively discount prices. The hotel operators in those countries are going to massively discount prices.
Ryanair is expecting a loss of €100 million in the 3 months to the end of June, which Oliare said was the first time the airline has ever suffered a loss in that quarter. Still in the UK, EasyJet has laid off its 4,000 UK-based cabin crew for 2 months. Elsewhere, Qatar has put up 20,000 staff on leave, and Air Canada has placed about 15,000 people on FURLOUGH. Emirates Airline has grounded 38 Airbus 380. It has also cancelled all orders for the Boeing 777X, which is 150 aircrafts, the largest order for this type. The airline said about 56 members of the workforce may retire. Also, Wizz Air returned 32 Airbus A320s and laid off 1,200 people, including 200 pilots, with another wave of 430 layoffs planned in the coming months, with the remaining employees seeing their wages reduced by 30%. The effects of the pandemic is not limited to airlines. The situation is forcing equipment manufacturers to axe jobs. Boeing is initiating a voluntary layoff plan to its 160,000 employees as the aircraft manufacturer struggles to stem the financial strain. In a statement, CEO David Calhoun said it will initiate a voluntary layoff plan. The VLP allows eligible employees who want to exit the company to do so with a pay and benefit package. About 10% of the company's workforce, roughly 16,000 jobs, will be cut. The company announced it will further reduce 787 Dreamliner production and try to boost liquidity as it prepares for a year-long industry recovery from the coronavirus pandemic that drove the plane maker to a net loss for the second straight quarter, burning $4.7 billion in cash in the first quarter. Boeing employs about 65,000 workers to build aircrafts and another 25,000 to provide services for commercial airlines. The company, based in Chicago in the United States, is the largest U.S. exporter and one of the nation's largest manufacturing companies. European plane maker Airbus also issued a bleak assessment of the impact of the crisis, telling the company's 135,000 employees to brace for potentially deeper job cuts and warning its survival is at stake without immediate action. Industry sources have said a new restructuring plan, similar to its 2007 Power 8, which saw 10,000 job cuts, could be launched in the summer. In Nigeria before now, quite a number of airlines had asked their staff to proceed on unpaid leave, one decision union representatives kick against.
This is a time we should be compassionate. It should be a solemn period. Everybody is affected. So why must a certain category of citizens be made to bear the full brunt of this calamity that has just befallen? The only thing that they can rely upon to sustain them until after we must have passed this stage is their salaries. And don't forget again, they have dependents. Some of them have aged mothers, fathers, they have children, they have uncles, they have brothers that are earning on daily basis to keep their souls together. They are the ones responsible.
Flag carrier Arik Air just last week announced it had taken a drastic measure cut in the salaries of workers by 80% for last month. The management of the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria has expressed worry over the dwindling revenue of the agency following the continued lockdown of its facilities.
For instance, in our own little sector, workers are already without pay, and when workers have no pay, they are out of job. They are taking vacation without pay. And ordinarily, what is the length of the vacation? Vacation 20 days, 25 days, but never know how long this is going to take. And when the offices are back now, how long will it take the aircraft to be in the air? All the travel agencies, bookings made are all cancelled. And of course, there's going to be a lot of apprehension after COVID-19 about people wanting to travel. There's going to be heavy apprehension. Is it still safe to travel? And that job loss is just imminent. Because, I mean, what's the essence of putting a worker in an office where you can't pay? and the complications and implication of COVID-19 is not an issue we can easily clear off the ground. It requires serious attention post-COVID treatment in the bodies of the people. I cannot see aviation get back to its normalcy during 2020. If that is doable, I feel the pulse of our government. I mean, looking at the beginning of the year with our budget, you'll see that our budget wasn't that healthy. Ours was a deficit budget. We were going to borrow even to finance our debts. So I doubt if our government will have such funds to say, okay, give this to worker. And if that is given to the airlines or the airport or whatever, what guarantees do we have that the money will go into that channel? Because if my bankers are on my neck or my fuelers are on the neck, okay, I think paying the worker would not be a priority. I might be tempted to divert the money to where the pain is hurting most.
Here at the Taronga Zoo, Marley the sea lion and his keeper, Daniel Fox, stand side by side in an almost empty zoo. Being able to venture out of his enclosure, Marley waddles freely down a path without any guests. The zoo had to close its doors to the public as of March 25th to comply with social distancing measures mandated by the Australian government in a bid to stop the spread of COVID-19.
Animals don't seem to react differently. However, they would definitely notice that there's no crowds out here when we're doing training sessions on stage, when normally there can be up to 1,000 people. So that would be quite different for them. However, they're not acting different. If they are feeling that things have changed, they're certainly not reacting in a different way.
Australia has largely avoided the high numbers of coronavirus casualties, which have beset other countries, with about 6,600 infections and 71 deaths.
Wow, that was good.
That has been put down to heavy restrictions on public movement, including border closures and shuttering businesses that rely on paying visitors, like zoos, with no end date given.
When you've got people that you can share what you are pretty passionate about, it makes your day. And so when they're not here to be able to share that with you, it's kind of like there's a void. It just feels empty. It's great because I still get to spend my days with the animals I would have been with otherwise. My day-to-day life hasn't really changed that much. It's just the feeling that's different.
Over at the bird show area, keeper Brendan Marcus is also trying to keep daily activities running for the birds of prey, although it's not the same without the crowds. During the 2018-2019 financial year, Taronga Zoo had 1.4 million guests pass through its gates.
Wow, that was good.